Okay. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Ballard.
Here.
Ms. Clark Emery. Ms. Cooper. Ms. Gills. Ms. Gomez.
Here.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Here.
Mrs. Santoro.
Here.
Mrs. Rye.
Here.
Mrs. Frenda.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And we will be going into executive session. The Open Public Meetings Act authorizes a public body to exclude the public from that portion of a meeting at which specified topics are to be discussed under circumstances where the public consideration of such topics will clearly endanger the public, or where the personal privacy or guaranteed rights of individuals whose activities or affairs are to be discussed would clearly be in danger of unwarranted invasions, and the matters about to be presented for discussion clearly meet the circumstances test of such act. The Board of Education of Somerset Hills now adjourns its public session to reconvene an executive session for the purpose of discussing the following: personnel, student matters, contracts, negotiations, and litigation. Can I please have a motion to go into executive? Ms. Cooper, and a second? Ms. Ballard. Thank you. We've just come back from executive session. If you could please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to give it over to Dr. Brochel for the report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. Frenda. Our first item of business tonight we have two students here from Bernardsville Middle School. We have Emily Mann, who's representing our peer leaders, and Katie Geibel, who is representing the currently undefeated girls basketball team. Ladies, come on up.
Hello everyone, I'm Emily Mann, an 8th grader at BMS and a part of the Peer Leadership Club. This club has been running for many years, and I'm excited to share what makes this club, but especially this year's club, extra special. Peer Leadership is an application-only club and is available to 8th graders. Led by Ms. Pasquarelli, we meet once a month after school, and once or twice during the school day per month as well. As you might have already guessed, peer leaders work together to create a positive, caring environment where everyone can learn in our school. These goals lead us to working with students in the other grades and planning projects where they can get involved to become better leaders themselves. So far this year, the peer leaders have done several projects with the 5th graders. One example of this is the 5th graders' Games with Gratitude Day. For the second year in a row, peer leaders went into every class and played games with them, demonstrating good sportsmanship. The event was a definite success as several 5th graders wanted to know when their new friends would be back. Because of this, we decided that a new program with the 5th graders would be a great addition to the table. After much brainstorming, we developed the Peer Partners program. And yes, before anyone asked, most of the brainstorming was over the name. In this program, 5th graders can sign up or be recommended by a teacher to be tutored by a peer leader during their lunch. For maximum efficiency, the sessions can extend to their study hall, and to ensure everyone is comfortable, 5th graders can request a certain peer leader to help. This is a really good opportunity for them to gain knowledge in a relaxed one-on-one environment. While a representative from peer leaders talked to the 5th graders during their lunch last week, we can all relate to forgetting something important. That's why I'd like to ask you to spread the word about this event if you know a 5th grader who might be interested. The first meeting is this Friday, and sign-ups are on their Google Classroom page. On a related note, the only other all-8th grade club, the Earth Science team, has their first meet at Ridge High School coming up. They are the only middle school in New Jersey that competes in this high school level competition, but that doesn't stop them from consistently placing high. Good luck to them and their advisor, Mr. King. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my update on 8th grade clubs. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I'd love to welcome my friend Katie up to talk to you about basketball. Thank you, Emily. Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Giebel. I'm an 8th grader at BMS and part of the girls' basketball team. The basketball team this year is doing really well. Our record currently is 12-0. In our most recent game, we won by 21 points, 55-34. Shoutouts to Jane Friesen, Sophia Frame, Kira Arienta, Alice Olifade, Jessica Cirillo, and Grace Healy for their amazing game throughout on offense and defense. The halftime team deserves a shout-out as well, winning their game against Mendon Borough. Catherine Douglas, Illy Sasso, Hannah Martin, Callie McCormick, Genevieve DeGromper, and Franny Espanola all played a great game with a shutout. As we go into the playoffs as the number 1 seed with no losses, the coaches are a big part of our success. They encourage us to work harder and give constructive feedback about what we can do better and what we are doing well. Coach O'Connor and Coach Brown are the great coaches who make sure everyone's having a good time while learning and playing. While there are many students on the team, the coaches make sure that everybody gets a good chunk of playing time. Overall, the girls' basketball team does not only give students an option to play the sport, but it gives students a chance to connect with other grades and make more friends. Now coming to the boys' basketball team. Our boys' basketball team is on fire. The team is led by a talented group of 8th graders and works under the guidance of Coach Petrie and Coach Reed. The team is the number 3 seed going into the playoffs and are playing a big game tonight. Wishing the BMS basketball teams a successful round of playoffs as they begin. This leads me to talk about spring sports. BMS school sports have been giving me many opportunities such as making friends, practicing sports, just overall something fun to do after school. These programs have been run so well and smoothly that I have thought about trying so many new sports that I would have never had the chance to try if not for BMS's great sports program. So if you're considering trying sports you may not have had the chance to try, you can try it at school. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I hope everyone has a great rest of their night.
Thank you, Emily and Katie. Very nicely done. And from the high school, we have Nora Dursak, who represents the high school kids.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, despite it being absolutely frigid out. I can say I am cold to the bone, regardless of how much I sit in front of my fire. To get started, we have had some fundraising recently, coming in strong with last week's volleyball tournament, which was hosted by the junior class. They had 9 teams and about 70 students participate total, so it was a really great turnout. The winning team was once again NJLC, who had previously won our dodgeball tournament. As first place winners, they received a prize and a trophy. The junior class is currently in the process of donating $100 of their proceeds from the tournament to their class charity, which is Homeless Solutions. Campbell's Flutterflies is hosting a gold out game on Saturday during the boys' basketball game against Ridge, our rivals. They have been selling t-shirts for the game and are hosting a half-court, halftime shootout competition. All proceeds will be going towards childhood cancer research. In addition to fundraising, we've also had some field trips. The anatomy classes had the opportunity to go to Liberty Science Center, and they got to watch a heart surgery live stream. I personally went last year. Super neat experience, and you're able to ask questions, so it's really great. In our theater department, there has also been a lot of good news. Cast members performing in the upcoming play Legally Blonde, who average at least 150 minutes of dancing a week, are going to be eligible for a Working Period 3 Option 2 exemption until the play is over, so that's really great. Their hard work is really paying off. This Friday, we also have a lot going on. As many of you know, the second working period ends Friday, and starting next week, students who are taking single semester courses will switch over into a new semester-long class or a study hall. For us seniors, Friday is very exciting as we have our Night of the Stars event. So, everyone's been talking about their costumes and getting ready. Group costumes should be very exciting. Let's see. What else? As far as winter sports, all of our winter sports teams have been doing really great. Boys basketball is currently 8-5. Girls basketball is 11-2, and within our division, they are 5-0. Both boys and girls fencing are currently 7-0, and they have the opportunity to be divisional champs if they beat North Hunterdon this week. If they win the division, it will be the 4th year straight for both teams, so that's really impressive. Girls fencing are also the Somerset County champions. Given their past history and past seasons, the ice hockey team has moved up to the best division at Menin Arena, where it has been a little bit challenging, but they did tie the other night and continue to play really hard. For ski racing, it has been a little bit more of a difficult conference, but they are working hard. The girls hold a score of 7-3 and the boys 2-8. Our swimming teams are doing well. Both teams are currently 3-4, and they've had great swims at the Skyline Championships. Most recently, the girls placed 8th in the 100 free, 10th in the 50 free, and 6th in the 200 free relay. The wrestling team has been working hard with their new coach and currently have a dual meet record of 6-3. Winter track is having a very strong season. Both the boys are county champs and U.S. second time in the DMR and number 1 in New Jersey. They set a school record in the sprint medley, which is super exciting, and they were officially invited to the Millrose Games in the 4x800. So yeah, thank you so much.
We're going to move into our recognitions for the evening. We do have 2 groups of students that we're going to recognize. The first are a group of students from the middle school who are being recognized as earning a place in the Central Jersey Music Educators Association Intermediate Honors Choir. This is an extraordinary deal. This is a big achievement, and I just want to point out that this school year, I've fielded a host of compliments regarding our choral program and our teacher over at the middle school as well. So this has been great to be able to see 3 kids earn placement in the CJMEA Intermediate Honors Choir. We do have a resolution for these 3 students, and I'm going to invite them up to earn them. The first is a young lady named Ella Huncher. Trinity Landry. And Jillian Pooler. Congratulations to all of the CJMEA honorees, and we're looking forward to great things as you finish out your middle school career and as you move on to the high school. Second group of editors are from the BHS Crimson. They were recently recognized by the School News Online as a distinguished site. We have a very high achieving and very successful student newspaper here at the high school. It's not uncommon for me to bring them in front of the board and to honor them with a resolution honoring their success. This year is no different, except for the fact of how early in the year they were honored. It's never been quite this early, according to their advisor, Ms. Hunkley, and it just kind of reinforces how strong our program is here, how excellent our educators are, and certainly, most importantly, how terrific the student editors are. So these folks are the leaders of the BHS Crimson that we are recognizing tonight. They are the student editors, and I will call them up one by one with resolutions from the board honoring their work and being named as a School News Organization SNO Distinguished Site. So our first honoree is Colin Caggiano. Jack Martin. Evelyn Noonan. Bailey Olson could not be with us tonight, but let's clap nonetheless. Ella Patel. Ari Rosen. Killian Schlager. William Simpson. Claire Taylor. Andrew Tropp. And that rounds out our student honorees for tonight. Give one last round of applause for our editors. In December, in our edition of Pathways, which is our district's newsletter, we made mention of Bedwell's Door Decorating for a Cause contest, and we did promise to reveal the winners at the January Board of Education meeting. And in first place for the single door division, we honor Ms. Rodriguez. Big deal, right? Second, or best overall, was Mrs. Coates, who is, everybody knows, is at our front entrance. And our first place in our hallway division is the first grade hallway. So congratulations to them. Oddly enough, I was a participant in Mrs. Hall's door. So she had a great idea, and she had pictures of all sorts of staff members making funny faces on her door, and that picture is now on my refrigerator at home. So, in our community cares, we've got some great news coming from our Multilingual Learners Club. They are collaborating with Sally Rozier from Communities in Crisis. They've organized a very first community service project of the year to support Cards for Kids, which is an organization that distributes handmade cards to pediatric patients nationwide. So being able to understand the specific need for cards written in Spanish, the students that were led by school district teachers, Ms. Garay and Ms. Medina, dedicated their lunch periods to create and personalize these unique cards to support Cards for Kids. So a great initiative coming from the high school for sure. Continuing partnerships. Bedwell Elementary School is continuing their partnership with a Somerset County organization called Sweet Reads. They provide free books for children. Through collaborations this year, all of our multilingual learners at Bedwell will receive several books from Sweet Reads, and they receive them around the holidays. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Mr. Catelli helped spearhead this initiative. The Bedwell Home and School Association has been busy supporting all the teachers over there at Bedwell, but there was a grant opportunity that was seized by Mr. Thurlow, who is Bedwell's technology and design teacher. He applied for it, and he was awarded an upgraded 3D printer. It's called the Bamboo A1 3D printer, and there are a host of new advancements when it comes to enhanced technology in comparison to his previous 3D printer. Mr. Thurlow worked closely with a district parent, Mr. Donahue, who does have expertise in this area. One of the first projects that Mr. Thurlow attacked was printing the remaining 10 states to complete a topographical map of the United States of America. And they're also busy printing cones, fidget toys, numerical building blocks, and other interactive pieces that are useful for this age group. They're useful for brain breaks, they're useful for mindfulness, and we're just thrilled that there's a deep and broad partnership at the HSA level with Mr. Thurlow, and his creativity, as all of you are aware, tends to have no bounds. So lots of cool things coming from partnership with Mr. Thurlow and the HSA. We do have some photographs that illustrate the remaining pieces from the United States topographical map and some other items there the kids have created. So very cool things indeed. Claire Taylor, who certainly is no stranger to the board, was named as a Everyday Hero for January. She cares about her community. She gives back. Not only is she president of the high school green team, but I also read in the newspaper that she's on the borough green team as well. So that's a very big deal. The green team this year had a role in recycling over 600 pounds of plastic. You may recall that Claire came to visit us and to promote her project in the summer, and it is something else to be able to create that many pounds of plastic, for sure. She has started a new section in the school newspaper. She was just honored a few minutes ago, but that section is the Bernardsville Beginnings in order to support small businesses in town, and I think that's a great idea. So she was named the high school Everyday Hero for the month. Sam Turner and Dawn Russo are teachers over at the middle school, and they are engaged in a spotlight on literacy regarding the current literacy units that are fan favorites amongst their sixth grade students. Students are immersed in nonfiction writing units that culminated in the creation of chapter books over at the middle school. And at this point, the class is now focused on nonfiction reading, and they will help to develop a quasi-TED Talk at the end of the unit. So a lot of great things taking place regarding literacy. Moving on to the first ever volleyball tournament was organized by the junior class officers. Nora did speak about this a few minutes ago. There are a few photos, one from the NJLC team that has swept the class competition so far this year. This event raised money in support of the junior and senior prom and a future class of 2026 mural. NJLC won $150. A portion of the profits were donated to the junior class chosen charity, which is called Homeless Solutions. Homeless Solutions is a nonprofit organization that works with individuals in Morris County who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. Junior class will also host a bake sale the week of February 10th. So they are very busy prepping for murals and proms. Earlier this month, last week, we had a team of teachers that brought our anatomy and physiology classes to Liberty Science Center, and it was a very well-attended field trip. Again, Nora did speak about the students watching a live heart surgery, which was very popular and very informative for the students on that trip. Bedwell has begun the Battle of the Books. It's our March Madness theme. We had a guest speaker, or Bedwell had a guest speaker, to help kick off the Battle of the Books, Julianne Brzezinski Simpson. Ms. Simpson was born in Elizabeth. She was a four-time All-American from the John F. Kennedy College, and she gained national recognition as the co-captain of the 1976 women's national basketball team, and they earned the silver medal in the first ever women's basketball competition. She spoke to the kids, and she helped kick off the Battle of the Books. There are currently 16 teams and 12 books on the battle list, and we begin our competition on March 12th. So a lot of activity coming from Bedwell. The Advanced Placement European History class visited the Met and took in some opera, and Dr. Hogg brought his students to see La Bohème, which is an opera by Puccini, and they had a great night out, a great meal, and a great opera, and that certainly is noteworthy. The Girl Up Club is continuing its work in the history hallway. They started an empowerment initiative where one component is for club members to create an informative display in the hallway every month for various Heritage Month celebrations, with the goal of being able to decorate, to educate, and to celebrate. So the Girl Up Club collaborated with the Asian American Pacific Islander Club to create a display about the Lunar New Year, which is coming on the 29th. So very cool indeed. We were informed through Nora regarding a lot of the accolades on our athletic courts, and you see some photos here from girls and boys basketball. Important to point out that Hercules Stewart at the Marine Corps Holiday Classic track meet broke the school record in the long jump with a leap of 22 feet 1 inch, and that's a great action shot there. Jack Alexi, who was a 2024 gold medalist from the Paris Games in swimming, who I believe is, hails from Mendham or somewhere thereabouts, and swam at the Somerset County Y, shared his Olympic experiences with the high school swimmers recently. Coach Voigt organized this opportunity and certainly was very cool. Boys and girls fencing are also highlighted on this slide. Both teams were undefeated. Both did very well at a recent invitational event up at Drew University. So we hope to hear great things in the world of fencing, or continue to. Kindergarten registration has been underway since the very beginning of the month. Right now, we have 60 families as of yesterday morning that have begun the registration process for kindergarten, and we have information that we're sharing out on all the major media outlets and different organizations in town to try to get folks in early to register. Coming in early to register does assist us and support us in a great way in the area of budget development, as well as we project out class sectioning and class sizes and things of that nature with our programming over at Bedwell. Legally Blonde is coming to us in about 6 weeks' time, March 7th, 8th, and 9th, and we're looking forward to that. And as always, you can find news in our Friday folders, etc. This winter, we're going to dive into a host of community engagement initiatives in the area of special education, in the area of strategic planning, and in the area of developing our budget. So we want to be able to have folks that are able to contribute in a variety of ways to inform the district, inform the administration, and help craft our practices as we move forward. So we have some great opportunities there that we will continue to promote through my office and ultimately lead. The Burnsville Planning Board will be receiving or be provided with what's called a courtesy review regarding the board's intentions to develop its property here at Bernards High School to include the installation of LED lights on Olcott Field. The Planning Board meets again on February 13th at 7:30 over at Borough Hall. I will introduce the project, and certainly the board has experts in the area of land usage that will talk about that, and also from our engineering team that will discuss the lights as we did here in September and throughout. Some brief updates on the Lower Fields project. These photos were taken earlier in the month, about a half hour before it started to snow. So I beat it just in time. So you'll see that there has been some significant grading work. As you transition from the infield to the outfield, there was a significant decline as you moved from those infield spaces out into the outfield. So that that slope has been made to be much more gradual and less significant. There is some grading that is going on the infield as well. And the same transition from the infield to the outfield on the softball field is taking place as well. You see some photos here. The photo on the left is a picture of an elevated home plate and pitcher's mound, and a field level view from approximately third base, our photo to the right. So things are moving on, and we fully anticipate to be ready for the spring season. At a recent meeting, it was requested by a board member that the Somerset Hills School District discuss cell phone usage with the Bedminster K-8 School District, just to kind of review our own practices regarding cell phone usage and to examine that a little bit further. In speaking with Bedminster, it's clear that there's a lot of alignment, if not perfect alignment, K-8, regarding how cell phones are utilized. And certainly Bedminster doesn't have a high school. They come to us here. We are examining, how people feel about cell phones and what the uses are. We did send out a flash survey to parents, teachers, and kids. We got well over 800 participants. Participants offered an understanding and acknowledgement that cell phones offer a level of distractibility to the users. They reference understanding that social media access is a challenge and isn't necessarily an instructional support during the day. There are conveniences that we have become accustomed to. All of us, I'm going to assume all of us here, have cell phones and utilize them in some way, whether it's coordinating a ride home or, just being able to connect with home on, some after-school items. And respondents also reported a declining interpersonal interactions. There was overwhelming support to maintain full student access to student cell phones, and I haven't really dug too much into the data outside of like the overall reports, but students, I would imagine, want to keep cell phones as is. Governor Murphy has indicated that he has a priority to legislate cell phone usage, but to put the onus of that decision onto local boards of education. He has not offered any real specifics of any specific legislation per se. I will say that from my observations, it appears that, in a broad sense, that the application of cell phone usage at the high school does marry convenience for kids to utilize them on an as-needed basis in passing time and in things like study halls and lunches, and it does appear that at the classroom level, it doesn't appear that they're overly distracting or getting in the way of real instruction. But we will continue to kind of examine that. Just so we're clear, the board does not have a policy on cell phones, but we do have administrative practices that are built into our code of conduct. And I think that's pretty standard across the districts that I've spoken to about this particular matter, that there isn't an actual policy itself, just administrative practice. So brief update on that. And as we move forward, we do have interview panels that are conducting interviews and discussions with candidates to become the Bedwell principal. That's taking place this week and as we move into February. We've begun candidate screening for the business administrator vacancy as well. We will continue to do that. As we move into February is an important month because the governor follows up his state address, which he gave last week, and he follows that up with a budget address. And why the budget address is important is because he lays out his financial priorities for the coming year. And inside of his financial priorities, he outlines exactly how he would like to fund New Jersey's public schools. So 48 hours by statute after he gives that final address, or that budget address, it'll be his 8th and final, he will then release state aid to all the districts, so then, we can kind of bake that into our budget in advance of our March work together. So important month for the governor, and I know that the Department of Education is wrapping that process up. One item that I'd like to point out to the board and to the community really is a shifting of an agenda item that is currently on the agenda for after public comments, but I would like to point out that January is Board of Education Recognition Month. You all are community volunteers. You all give hundreds of hours, if not more, to the various responsibilities connected to being a board member. You do so very well. You do so with great commitment. You do so with great passion, and you do so with students and their success and their support in mind, and I appreciate that. And on behalf of all of the staff members here in the district, and speaking on behalf of the communities that we collectively serve, I thank you for what you do for all the students and all the staff members in our district on behalf of those folks that have elected you to this position. So congratulations. We recognize you and we thank you for your work. Ms. Frenda, we do have some board recognitions for retirees that I'll defer to you on.
Yes, Ms. Ballard, as the new chair of our Policy and Personnel Committee, will you do the honors, please?
Yes, I'd be honored to make these announcements. Whereas Jeanette Bracero has been employed from January 2008 through June 2025 as a high school teacher, and whereas she exemplified expertise, commitment, and professionalism in her duties, now therefore be it resolved that the Somerset Hills School District and Board of Education recognize Jeanette Brazero's retirement effective July 1st, 2025, and extend to her congratulations and best wishes for a happy, healthy, and enjoyable retirement. Whereas John Hogg has been employed from September 2000 through June 2025 as a high school teacher, and whereas he exemplified expertise, commitment, and professionalism in his duties, and now therefore be it resolved that the Somerset Hills School District and Board of Education recognize John Hogg's retirement effective July 1st, 2025, and extend to him congratulations and best wishes for a happy, healthy, and enjoyable retirement. Whereas Dina Fisher has been employed from September 1999 through June 2025 as an elementary school teacher, and whereas she exemplified expertise, commitment, and professionalism in her duties, and now therefore be it resolved that the Somerset Hills School District and Board of Education recognize Dana Fisher's retirement effective July 1st, 2025, and extend to her congratulations and best wishes for a happy, healthy, and enjoyable retirement.
Thank you so much. And those are three big retirements there who have had a tremendous impact on our school community and most certainly our students over the course of their careers. We are going to move into public comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any actionable agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, you'll be interrupted and asked to pause to allow any other members of the public who would like to speak an opportunity to do so. An individual may return to the podium to complete their statement after everyone else has had an opportunity to speak for a total of 2 times at the podium. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public comments will be limited to 30 minutes for this section. A reminder for all parties in attendance to remain respectful and that there should be no interaction between the speaker and the audience. No members of the audience should interfere with or interrupt the speaker's comments. Thank you in advance for your input. And we do have our timer. So if anyone should take the podium, you will just take note of the timer that will count down from 3 minutes to let you know how much time you have remaining on your comments, at which time you'll be interrupted. So if there is anybody that would like to make a comment at this time on an actionable agenda item? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to close public comments, please? Ms. Cooper, and second, Ms. Santoro. Thank you very much. And as Dr. Brochel referenced, on the agenda, it is noted that it is New Jersey School Board's Appreciation Month, and we thank him for that recognition that he gave during his superintendent's report.
And this is wrong.
And we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes. So I am going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes for the public input and action and executive meeting minutes just for December 18th. Mr. Baker, and can I get a second? Ms. Rye, thank you. And is there any discussion on the minutes? No? Okay, then roll call.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Ms. Gomez.
I abstain.
Mrs. Hoppy.
I don't think I was there. I'll have to abstain.
Okay. Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery. And Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and you'll see later in the agenda, under policy and personnel, we have a policy that is going to be amending our board committees policy. We are going to be combining finance and facilities and operations into business operations, one committee, and Mr. Baker is going to be the chair of that committee. But until we have made the updates and voted to approve that policy, we are going to still break them out as finance and facilities and operations. So I hand it over to Mr. Baker for finance.
Thank you. I'm going to give my report in 2 pieces. So, and there'll be some hopefully not a lot of overlap. The combined committee, which is the Business Operation Committee, met on January the 15th for about an hour and 10 minutes. All members were in attendance, along with Dr. Brochel and Mrs. Filestra. We talked about 7 different topics. I'm going to talk about the ones that affect finance first. We talked about the long-range facilities plan that is being developed for our help in the referendum. So this item does F&O and finance. And Dr. Brochel outlined some items that we're thinking about, not that these are going to be the ones that we would do. A new robotics facility, an upgrade of the TV studio. This is for the high school, and be clear. An upgrade of all science labs, retrofitting the upstairs of the media center to make it more flexible, and maybe a culinary arts area. In the middle school, upgrading and adding science labs. In the elementary school, upgrading the security entrance, renovating the media center, adding tech spaces in the lower part of the building for K through 8 instruction. We also discussed the possibility of a second question besides the referendum to fund all those big projects for things like the improving and retrofitting the lower high school gym, and maybe exterior restroom for Alcott Field. I think it's important for the board to understand that whenever we put this plan forward in the next few months, whatever it is, and we talked about it before, it would be tax neutral. Let's say $35 million bond. It would, because bonds are coming off, adding these new projects for $35 million would not change what the taxpayers are paying going forward. But the State Department of Education has to review these to give approval, because they give us 40% funding, and that takes 6 to 8 months. So that's pushing us into the end of this year, which means we would have to have a referendum vote either in December or January, which would not be at the general election in November. So there's pros and cons on that. We can talk about that some other time. Also, in finance, we all got, on the committee, we got our budget book, so anybody who haven't seen these, you'll be getting these shortly. And there's a wealth of information goes into the book, and it's only about half full right now, but it outlines what each school and an administrative department would like. Doesn't mean they're going to get it, but that's what they like. And so we discussed a few items in here, and we'll be developing, when Dr. Brochel talked before, that we're going to have a retreat in March, and we're going to present at the March board meeting a draft, no budget, and then we vote on it in April. I do want to point out that when Mrs. DeMarco was here a couple of years ago, we moved a lot of our cash on hand into this New Jersey arm, and we've made $400,000 in interest. So that's remarkable. If anybody's moved their own money into a money market fund, it's remarkable, them getting 0.25% at your local bank. So that's wonderful news. That's $400,000 coming right back into the school. Another finance item to help us with the referendum planning, our bond advisors, which is called Phoenix Advisors, will make a presentation to the committee in February, so we can understand all the ins and outs of a referendum and some of the timelines involved. The last item, which crosses both sides, would be, we talked about possible, his recommendation that we should do a consolidation study with Bedminster. He's recommending we should do it, but we should do the study. There's grant money available. I was on the board back in 2007 when this was done back then, and we found it to be, at the time, it didn't make a lot of sense, but now there's a lot of mechanisms to make the finances and the combining of the school districts more advantageous. So this would be a study by a third party that, if this board approved it and the Bedminster board approved it, in the next, let's say, 3 or 4 months, we could have this study started, and there'd be grant money available, so we would not have to pay for it. And those are all the finance items, so I'm going to turn it back to Mrs. Frenda.
Okay, then I would like at this time to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 10 on the agenda. I have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Baker, in a second. Ms. Cooper? And is there any discussion on the finance items?
I just think it's wonderful about what Marco did last year with the in her tenure with to gain us an extra $400,000.
That's- yes.
Tremendous, so.
I also want to point out that item number 9 on the agenda, I want to thank Chef for 3 donations of $9,199 to 3 great places. So that's, I think, of the 10 items we're approving, that takes special notice.
Yes. And direct impact on our kids. Is there anybody else? Nope. Okay, then roll call, please.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Ms. Gomez.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. We will go back to Mr. Baker for facilities and operations, please.
Okay, so there's 3 items that I didn't talk about that are purely F&O. One was what Dr. Boschel talked about, the lower athletic fields. So those photographs were very great, and just so it's clear that we hope to have this done by the spring season. You know, the weather's not good right now if we're trying to do anything out there, but, you know, I think that we will have it done by then. So they're going to, once all the regrading and the soil's been there, we're going to have to sod some of the infields and put grass seed around where it needs it. So that was that item. He also mentioned the Alcott Field lighting project, which has been submitted to the planning board for their review in a couple weeks. And the last item that is F&O is the renovation of the tennis courts at the Polo Grounds. And we think we're going to add that as a capital project for the next year and maybe 2 years, because the tennis courts are in 2 pods, 3 and 3, so we could do half and half and spread the cost out. But Dr. Boschel's got to get some estimates on that, and we'll be talking about that as we put the budget together. And I think that's it, Mrs. Frenda.
Okay, are there items that you would like to read in for facilities?
Yes, I would like
operations?
to read in, let me get my sheet here. So I'm going to read, there are presently 2, there's resolutions 1 and 2. I'm going to add resolution 1B and 2B. And so for 1B, it's resolved the Somerset Hills School District reviewed the harassment and imitation and bullying case presented on January 2nd and upheld the findings and consequences recommended by the superintendent for BMS number 6. And for 2B, it would be resolved the Somerset Hills School District reviewed the harassment and intimidation and bullying case presented on January 2nd and upheld the findings and consequences recommended by the superintendent for BHS number 14.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What we are going to do, just for the sake of clarity for the board, is we are going to vote independently on each of these resolutions. So for the 1A, I'm going to ask for a motion for to approve item 1A on the agenda. Mr. Baker, in a second. Okay. Any discussion?
Who's the second?
Oh, Ms. Cooper.
Okay.
Okay. Then we'll have roll call on 1A, please.
Ms. Gomez.
Abstain.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And now I would like to ask for a motion to approve item 1B on the agenda. Ms. Ballard and Ms. Cooper again. And is there any discussion on 1B? Okay. Then roll call, please.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Ms. Gomez.
Abstain.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. And now I need a motion to approve item 2A on the agenda. Ms. Rye, and a second. Mr. Baker. Okay, is there any discussion on 2A? Nope, okay, then roll call, please.
Mrs. Hoppy,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes, abstain from 14.
Okay. And Ms. Gills,
Yes.
Ms. Gomez,
Abstain.
Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and finally, item 2B. I need a motion to approve item 2B on the agenda. Mr. Baker, and a second. Ms. Rye, and any discussion? Okay, then roll call, please.
Ms. Gomez,
Abstain.
Mrs. Hoppy,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery,
No.
Ms. Cooper,
Abstain.
Ms. Gills,
No.
Ms. Gomez,
Abstain.
and Ms. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And before we move on to curriculum, is there anybody that has any new business for either facilities and operations or finance for future agendas? Or old business? Nope? Okay, then we will move on to the report of the curriculum committee. Ms. Cooper.
Thank you. Our new curriculum committee met Tuesday, January 14th for an hour and 15 minutes. Committee members this year include Mrs. Frenda, Mrs. Gills, Ms. Hoppy, Mrs. Rye, and myself. And last week, Ms. Frenda, Ms. Hoppy, Ms. Rye, and I attended, along with Dr. Broschel, Dr. Butler, and Mr. Catelli. We began our meeting by welcoming our new member, Mrs. Hoppy, and then Mr. Catelli joined us to give us an update on the bilingual program for kindergartners at Bedwell. According to Mr. Catelli and the data he presented, students in this program are doing remarkably well, and families seem to be really happy with the program. The transition to Bedwell for students in the program has also been quite a bit smoother than for our multi-language learners, or MLLs, in our previous years. Students are progressing much more quickly towards letter recognition in both English and Spanish than our MLLs in past years. In the January assessment, students in our current program recognized as many letters as last year's ML students did in April, which means that students in our bilingual program are months ahead of students in previous years. Mr. Catelli and Dr. Butler also described some of the valuable insights our bilingual consultant has shared to help guide our curricular efforts and to ensure that our ML students feel welcome and like they are an important part of our community in all of our schools. Regarding plans for next year, Mr. Catelli, Dr. Broschel, and Dr. Butler indicated that they would like to continue offering the bilingual program in kindergarten and to expand it to appropriate first graders, as has been previously planned. We also discussed the possibility of running a dual language program in first grade in the future, but this option requires further exploration by the administration. In our discussion of the bilingual program, Dr. Broschel also emphasized the great work of the Bedwell HSA, which has been thoroughly committed to ensuring its success. We then transitioned into a discussion of the curricular budget for the 2025 to 2026 school year. Dr. Broschel indicated that he's expecting a tighter budget next year due to plateauing state revenue. He doesn't expect our state aid to increase, and Bedminster enrollment is also declining. However, our curriculum requires fewer updates in response to changes in learning standards this year compared to last year. Dr. Edgerton will be joining us next month to discuss math instruction in the middle school and the high school, but last week Dr. Butler gave us a brief overview of the work currently underway to ease the 8th and 9th grade transition in math. In recent months, Bedminster and the Somerset Hills administrators have met several times to improve alignment between districts and math instruction. Articulation between the middle school and high school teachers is also continuing in an effort to improve alignment in algebra. Dr. Butler did inform us that standards for recommending students for honors geometry in 9th grade are changing. To be recommended for honors geometry, 8th grade students will need to receive an A and not an A- in algebra at PMS. The staff is also considering NJSLA and iReady scores when making these recommendations. No concerns were raised regarding any of the professional development or field trip requests currently on the agenda for approval, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper. I would like to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 5 on the agenda. Ms. Cooper, and a second. Ms. Hoppy, thank you. And is there any discussion for curriculum? Yes, Ms. Gills.
Is it absolutely a given that we'll have a first grade bilingual classroom next year? Because I thought that's what it was. K this year, first grade next year, English across second, following week.
As long as we need one for first grade, we will have one.
Okay, thank you.
We're still a little up in the air about how many students will need it, but
And just to follow up on that, it's essentially a non-negotiable in budget development to have monies allocated for that position to put us in the position to move that direction.
I have a question regarding the math. So the alignment, because I know that's a very big issue with Bemisten. Are you still having geometry then in middle school?
we will still offer geometry in middle school.
Okay, so.
If it's needed. Again, we have to see, each year we look at the class that we have, and we want to meet the needs of the students that are in that class. So as long as there are students who are ready for geometry, yes.
Okay, so that means we don't have, right? Like, that was the problem. There is no way, like, we can do something for the school, the students to come here and, I don't know, like, to have geometry?
It's something that we've explored. We don't have any definite plans yet, though, but they are still talking about. We want to be able to align as closely as we can.
Thank you, because I know many parents are.
Yes, I know.
Before I move on, I just wanted to say, like, the presentation that Mr. Catali gave, and I just wanted to thank the administration, Mr. Catali, just the tremendous work that has been going on in the bilingual program. It was just really astounding, just the success of these students and how much they've achieved, and it was just remarkable. So thank you, guys.
I want to echo that. Ms. Cooper, I'm so thrilled to hear. Here we are only in January and the success of the program so far. So that is, it is a pleasure to hear that. Thank you for all the hard work on that. Ms. Cooper or Dr. Butler, can you just talk about what a dual language program is and what that would look like? I mean, I know it's in discussions, but I'm just curious if you can give us a little more detail about what that is.
Can I punt that to you, Colleen? Sorry, Dr. Butler.
We're in very early, kind of discovery right now. But it would be students who, some are multilingual learners, some are English-speaking students, and they would be learning together. There's different models. One of the models that we are exploring is maybe all of the core classes in the morning would be in Spanish, in the afternoon it would be in English. There's different models, though, and we're still really at the very early exploration stage.
I remember Dr. Catali talking about how you kind of have to progress into this, but I remember there being a lot of excitement on the committee about the prospect of that at some point,
We've had a lot of parents show interest, so it's something that we wanted to look into.
Great, thank you.
And to add to that too, just because it is so exciting, Mr. Catali provided us with some pictures and the family environment in that classroom and the welcoming and the community that those students and the teachers have developed is really very special and something that should be recognized, and that goes to the greater school community as well down at Bedwell. So major appreciation and thanks to everybody involved.
I also just wanted to give a shout out. They have a great teacher, too, so we want to make sure that.
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
For lack of a better word, just because I'm in that special ed world. When you talk about the integrated program, how would you get the English learners? Like, is there a lottery system? Like, I would love my son to be like, if I had to be in that class, because there's nothing more
Well,
joyous
yeah.
than learning.
We'll have to wait and see.
Oh, so that's, I'm
It would be,
jumping.
that would be a nice problem if
I'm
we,
ju-
if we
okay.
have to have a lottery system.
Okay,
We'll see.
because, there's going to be a lot of excitement
Mhm.
across the board, so, all right. Thank
More to
you.
come.
More to come, okay.
Is there anybody else for curriculum? No? Okay, then roll call, please.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Ms. Gomez.
So do I say yes to the ones that are high school only, right? So just to those. Thank you. Yes.
And Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anybody have anything for new business for curriculum to be put on a future agenda? Anything for old business?
It came to my mind, like, is it possible to offer, like in the summer, a program, for example, the kids that are Algebra A+, to have a geometry? I'm just thinking, like they are entered? Yeah. Thank
Good question. Okay, if seeing none, then we will move on to the report of policy and personnel. And Ms. Ballard for personnel.
Thank you, Mrs. Frenda.
Thank you.
The Policy and Personnel Committee met on January 14th for an hour and 15 minutes. In attendance was myself, Ms. Clark Emery, Mrs. Gills, Mrs. Santoro, Mrs. Frenda, and Dr. Burchell. Some of this was covered in the superintendent's report, but we'll add on the principal hiring at the Bedwell. There's been internal candidate interviews. The ads were posted in October and November. External and internal candidates met with a panel of administrators and parents, and there are 3 excellent candidates moving forward, 1 internal and 2 external. The next stage is the level 3 interviews. They'll meet with a different panel to merge candidates. The panel includes representatives from every grade level staff-wise, support services, administrators, and parents. One final meeting will follow when the pool is narrowed down to 1 or 2 candidates, and then a decision will be made hopefully by February or March. In the business administrator hiring process, conversations are beginning with introductory phone screenings with the goal of a March or April hire. Policy, we had a lot of...
We'll pause so that we can vote on the personnel.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
That's everything for personnel? Is that everything for personnel?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then I would like to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 18 on the agenda. Can I have a motion, please? Ms. Rye, and a second. Ms. Santoro, and is there any discussion for personnel? Nope. Okay, then roll call, please.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Ms. Gomez.
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now, Ms. Ballard, policy.
Now I can do policy, okay. We had a lot of policies to discuss, but we kind of ran out of a little time, so we discussed 2 emergent policies that will go for first read today. One is the policy 0155, which is the board committee bylaw, which we discussed earlier about the merging of the different committees, facilities and operations, and the finance, which will be the business operations committee. We also discussed the substance abuse administrative regulation, and this is something that was brought to our attention by the high school principal, and the problem is that our regulation is overly restrictive, that it calls for blood samples to be taken for particular drug testing, and this is for suspicion of drug use, not the random drug testing. We used to have a district physician who would do this, but now we use outside vendors, and this service is not available. Page 22 of the regulation provides for changes to the regulation which are less restrictive. The modifications to the regulation allow the administration to remain compliant with the policy and regulation while working with our vendors who will do passive testing, such as breathalyzer tests. And then to the cell phone matters. Dr. Brochel talked a little bit about the surveys. There was 2 surveys, one external, comparing our cell phone practices to other schools in Essex Union and MUJC districts, and then an internal survey. A brief overview of results from the external survey show that our policies are in line with other school communities. The results of the internal survey showed a recognition of the distractibility of cell phones used in learning situations, as well as social media impact, while expressing a significant desire to have access to cell phones. Something that was mentioned over and over was it was important to ensure that people can get rides home. The board currently does not have a cell phone policy. We have administrative policies that are built into the code of conduct. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So then I would like to ask for a motion to approve action item number 1 on the agenda for policy.
Move that we approve action item number 1.
Thank you, Ms. Hoppy. And a second? Ms. Santoro? And is there any discussion relating to policy?
Questions
Yeah.
about the cell phone survey? Thank you for providing the link to the survey to the other board members. I would think it would be really helpful. It looked to me that the data were analyzed together, student responses and parent responses were analyzed together. I would like to see them separately. I think there's going to be a vast difference.
Yeah, that's correct. And I should have made that more of an emphasis in my report. The data that was presented was global and inclusive of all the participants. It was really more of a time issue on my end, where we didn't really disaggregate all the way down to the granular level. I do intend on doing that.
Okay.
I just wasn't prepared tonight, yeah.
And were parents of elementary school and middle school?
We didn't, no, we just sent it out to the high school
Okay.
parents. And I think what it does is it gives you a good snapshot of just kind of where people are.
Right.
Yeah, but we limited it to just high school parents, high school students, and high school staff.
And will you disaggregate it to staff too then?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just had some very heated discussions about that, so.
Okay.
There are going to be some very different opinions, and I'd like to see how that all sort of.
Well, you can tell, I mean, just in the response rate alone. I mean, in a hustle, we had 400 high school kids. And interestingly, while the results were coming in, before the parents officially got the email, there were parent results. So I guess, so I'm assuming that they were talking about it, you know, how was at night or what have you. But there was about a 12-hour time difference between when the 2 groups got it. So that was interesting, that they were having discussions about it.
I think that's the most responded to survey I've
Yeah.
seen.
It doesn't surprise me. I would
Yeah.
say so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that have, you know, a lot of great input into this conversation. I think that's what we talked about in the committee, that there's a lot of layers, and, you know, I think there's a lot of different considerations to make, but it's important to hear all the voices and, you know, and figure out what it is we're trying to accomplish, right? I mean, that's kind of the conversation that we had. Get very clear on what it is we need to accomplish with, or if we need a policy, you know?
It's interesting, we all look at different pieces to this particular question through different lenses, right? And we all have a variety of lenses, whether you're a parent. Some of us are adult learners. Some of us work in schools, you know, so you kind of see it, you know, through each of those lenses. And I think that kind of rings through in the feedback. I think that there's a lot of applicability to it. I've had discussions with folks with educators and leaders about the fact that if our job is to prepare students for careers that don't even exist yet, or if our job is to prepare students for a career that utilizes technology, isn't it our responsibility to also teach and model how to use that in an appropriate way? So, you know, and that's kind of like the response to the notion of we need to lock up cell phones for the entirety of a school day. You know, my point, you know, is, well, there are roles out there where people need to know how to balance technology and face-to-face interaction. And I think, on the parent side, the data is going to suggest a high preponderance of desire for face-to-face communication. So I think that it's a good discussion, it's a good conversation, it's a good analysis, or something to analyze regarding, are we putting kids in the best position to be successful with our practices? I would say, and then I'll finish, I would say that I'm not sure that there's a problem on the instructional side of the argument here based upon what I'm seeing anecdotally. I would say as a parent, and I would say as a leader, that social media, is to me the far greater challenge than balancing how to utilize technology in instruction. And we only have a small hand in that from a district perspective when it comes to social media. I think that's certainly a challenge. I know that in meetings that I've sat in with folks like Senator Gopal, who chairs the Senate Education Committee, there is a high level of interest, I would think, around the concept of social media and how legislation supports school districts at developing policies to limit how and when social media is accessed during the school day. Not sure that's something that is attainable legislatively, but I think that's the intent. So, interesting times are ahead.
Ms. Ryan, did you have?
Ms. Hogan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Hogan.
That's okay. I guess there's so many different layers to this cell phone thing. Like, I guess, like, what is the purpose? What are we looking to do? Are we looking to teach them how to use it appropriately? Or are we addressing the big elephant in the room that is always there, which is causing anxiety and depression and self-loathing, for our children? So I know I came into this late, and I apologize for, the ignorance, but I guess my thought is, technology is very important, and yes, we do need to teach our children and the community's children how they need to learn, how to gather information effectively. But there's that's such a delicate balance too. You have it's an emotional, like, time bomb at times. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I guess as a school, we just have to look at, like, the why. What's the purpose here? Are we just limiting it to, like, the hallway use, or are we going to address also the social and emotional impact technology and cell phone usage and Instagram and Facebook and all that other stuff, and YouTube and all that stuff has on our children? Besides AI.
Yeah.
To write their papers.
So not speaking for the legislators that are giving their opinion on this topic, but it is clear there's concern about the mental health side, specifically with social media. And I think that's probably where this will lead, like, legislatively. And for those of you that have neighbors or children or an account yourself for an app called TikTok, this past weekend was evidence enough that was a very important, I guess the 12-hour deletion of that app worldwide was a very important moment in a lot of people's lives that I have come to know on a day-to-day basis in my house. And, and I think it speaks to a greater point that, what is the level of impact on a particular social media platform? And I think that is where the discussion really is aligned with. around concepts of depression, anxiety, mental health, et cetera.
And truth and untruth.
Yeah.
Like to differentiate between what is real, what isn't real, and how to parse that out, which could be a whole course in itself.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it, at this point?
There is,
There
and,
is.
you know,
Came into it late.
brief side note, our media specialist at the middle school teaches a terrific unit on truth in media and deciphering fact from fiction online. Yeah, but that is a state mandate in curriculum.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hobby, I couldn't, oh, I'm
I'd
sorry.
like
Yeah.
to,
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
absolutely, thank you so much for taking a look at this. I'd like to respectfully request that this survey be moved to the middle school level. As a former middle school teacher, it was a big problem, a bigger problem in middle school perhaps than with older users who tended, so far as I could see, to use it in a better way. You know, I had kids who just went into bathrooms and all they did was sit there for 20 minutes, you know, trying to access their social media. And we didn't survey the middle school, so I just want to actually ask that we do that.
I think that's a great idea.
Just so we're clear on why we didn't, is that when a K-8 student in the district doesn't have the ability to use their phone during the day. So they come to school with it.
Okay, but it's in the locker.
It's in the locker, and then at the end of the day, they take it home. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I wasn't aware.
Just one second. I just want to make sure that there's nobody else that hasn't spoken yet that wants to contribute. Okay.
So I was just going to say, Ms. Hobby, I agree with you. There's so many different layers to this, and I think that's the point. We have to be very clear about what information we're looking to get, because clearly this is being looked at a legislator, it can be looked at a policy, but maybe the biggest thing that needs to happen is a community outreach, education, and dialogue, right? Because the social media aspect, creating the anxiety, you know, if we take away cell phones for the time that they're in our buildings, I'm not saying there's not value to that, but if then they're on them for 12 hours as soon as they get home, right, that's not necessarily solving the problems we're looking to solve. So I think it's such a worthwhile conversation, and obviously it's happening at all different levels, and it's going to be good to continue to get input. But Pat, to your point, at the middle school, maybe down the road surveying the impact of social media on our kids, and I don't know if that's our responsibility as administrators, but those are the things, you know, since they're locked away in lockers throughout the day. It's not a usage issue per se, but yes.
Ms. Clark Emery?
I agree with what you're saying on as far as the middle school level, and Dr. Brochel, it would be great if everyone actually did put them in the lockers and keep them there, but they don't. And, you know, they carry them in their pockets or their backpacks, but they're not supposed to be used. You're right, affirming that they're not supposed to be used during the day in class at all. But just to remind us that they're not in the lockers for the most part for most students. That's also, it's something that might, you know, take a look at some point, just in between going to the bathroom, because they are, you know, being used in the bathroom when they're there or somehow. That's all.
I'm sorry. Okay, it's because I can overthink things sometimes. Then you have that, and I can understand why it's in your pocket, because half of the time you're watching the news, and God forbid, something happens at a school or a library, or, so then there's that piece too, like, you know, as a mother, I'd be like, hide it in your pants, don't show anybody. Do you know what I mean? You know, that would be me, telling my son, don't put it in your, you know, I'm sorry, but I would say, don't put it in your locker, shove it down your pants. But, you know, like, just to be safe, because God forbid, but that's a Jewish mother. So, but that's another piece, you know? And with the anxiety, I didn't mean so much that the anxiety of not having your phone, I meant the anxiety of with social media, the impact.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I got
Because
that, yes.
to ramble.
No,
Thank
but
you.
to that end, and, it's interesting,
Thank
it was incorporated into learning standards regarding, misinformation or how to truth from, fact from non-fact. If maybe, they tend to ask for feedback, like if they do start to go the standards route, the legislators do ask, and the department asks for feedback from all of us. I think it would be very worthwhile to pay attention to that. As Dr. Brochel says, it's something that's on the radar so that we can provide that feedback, because I think to the end of the media specialists doing this, I think that probably a lot of the progression of this would be more overt teaching of the psychology behind reality of what everybody's true experience is versus, because so much of the mental health issues surrounding things are based in that, what is your reality versus what you're seeing, but also that responsible usage, which has started, but maybe a more firm curriculum surrounding that. So I think that our feedback, if that opportunity arises, would be very valuable moving forward. Yes, Ms. Cooper.
I think that I would love to see what the opinions of, I would love to see the survey expanded to the parents of the middle school kids too, just to see what the parents think of, because most of their kids are going to be in high school in a couple of years too. I would like to see what their opinions are of a cell phone use in high school, what their opinions are, what their wishes are as well.
And maybe there's good feedback that kids
Yeah.
are, because I thought that they were locked in the lockers.
Oh, sorry.
So naive, I guess.
Well,
but-
some are.
Some
are, yes.
Some are. My son was
I don't know
very
why I had this
adamant about that.
impression It was a little bit more like, for some reason, yeah.
Yeah. Is there anybody else? No? Okay, then roll call, please.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Mrs. Rye.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Microphone on. Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Ms. Clark Emery.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Gills.
Yes.
Ms. Gomez.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So that was just like a really great, robust conversation and sharing of perspectives and ideas. I just wanted to say thank you. I thought that was great information shared by everyone. Is there anything for new business to be put on a future agenda for policy?
New business.
Yeah.
I'd like to address changing the format of the meeting so that parents or audience members can speak on non-agenda items first, so that they don't have to wait for the entirety of the meeting before they have an opportunity to speak on any subject matter, because I know that's been a complaint of parents.
So, Ms. Ballard, just so we're clear, there's a board bylaw that legislates how the agenda is developed, which is what is being asked of the policy committee. And I can forward that to you.
Thank you, Dr. Brochel. Okay, and was any old business? Nope. Okay, then Ms. Santoro, Student
Okay.
Services.
All right, so Student Services, this year on the committee is Mrs. Frenda, Ms. Ballard, Ms. Cooper, and Ms. Rye. Everyone was in attendance at our meeting on November 14th. And it was a nice meeting, kind of culmination of how many, was this our third or fourth meeting for this committee? It's a newer committee, so I think it was our third or fourth, of the dialogue and conversations we've been having around student services. Dr. Brochel touched on it in his superintendent report, and predominantly what we talked about was the Operation Responding for Excellence meetings that are going to take place on the 23rd of January, February 4th, and February 25th. Dr. Brochel talked to us about the fact that he was going to use the Pareto principle, which is either similar to or what you did use in the meeting for. Similar. Yep. And, that these meetings are intended to provide an opportunity for parents and staff to both communicate and learn from each other. And We really want all parties to be heard in a constructive and productive manner. So, we're looking forward to these sessions getting kicked off, and then Dr. Brochel obviously reporting back to us with the results and discussing that at future meetings. And then we just had a little bit of a brief conversation as that program gets kicked off as to some of the topics that we'll be moving on to next. Those are going to include co-curriculars, reviewing all of our co-curriculars, and through a lens of equity. Our administration is going to review staffing, opportunities for kids, the outfitting, budgets, student satisfaction, and we're going to take a look at all of that, as well then as digging a little bit deeper into culture and climate within the district, learning a little bit more about what's going on with capturing kids' hearts at the middle school, and then how that will either branch out or what we will be looking to do at the high school going forward. So that was it, and we don't have anything on the agenda.
We do not have any action items for student services, but if there's anybody that would like to raise a new item for future agendas for student services? No? For olds? No. Okay. Then we will move into board announcements. The views and opinions that may be expressed by individual members of the Somerset Hills Board of Education during board announcements are solely those of the individual board members and do not reflect the views, opinions, policies, regulations, and/or positions of the Somerset Hills Board of Education or any other individual members of the board. Is there anybody that has anything for board announcements? No? Okay. Then we will move into the second public comments session. Public comments are welcome at this time on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, you'll be interrupted and asked to pause to allow any other members of the public who would like to speak an opportunity to do so. An individual may return to the podium to complete their statements after everyone else has had an opportunity to speak for a total of 2 times at the podium. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. A reminder to all parties in attendance to remain respectful, and there should be no interaction between the speaker and the audience. No members of the audience should interfere with or interrupt the speaker's comments. Thank you in advance for your input. And again, we will have a timer set if at 3 minutes, and it will count down for your reference as you're speaking, and at 3 minutes, you will be interrupted to see if there are any other speakers who would like a turn at the podium. So with that, is there anyone for public comments this evening?
Allison Librera, 10 Stevens Street. In October, my husband and I met with the Child Study Team for our son's annual IEP review. During the meeting, it was determined that he would undergo a reevaluation to see if Jake was ready to transition into the Gen Ed reading class with his peers. We informed the team that we had scheduled an appointment with an ophthalmologist. Once his glasses arrived, I notified the Child Study Team and his reevaluation was scheduled. On December 2nd, the Monday after Thanksgiving break, Jake came home and told us that he had met with someone for a long time. We realized he was referring to his reevaluation and asked if he had worn his glasses the entire time. He informed us that he did not have them at all. I immediately reached out, and my husband and I then met with Ms. Kransky. But unfortunately, the meeting did not go well. I followed up by emailing Dr. Brochel, and I was very satisfied with his response. I felt heard and that he recognized some of the shortfalls in the process. Therefore, I did not attend last month to share any further concerns. However, last month, I listened to Dr. Panic speak, and that is what brings me here tonight. I had always assumed that the challenges we faced were within the Old Cop building, whether due to budget constraints, lack of personnel, or leadership decisions under Ms. Kransky. But after hearing Dr. Panic, I now realize that my concerns may also extend to Bedwell. This realization is heartbreaking because we have genuinely loved the therapists and teachers who have supported us on our journey. Let me be clear. My decision to speak up has nothing to do with them. Last month, Dr. Panic spoke about how hard everyone works and how no one person has all the answers. I agree. No one has all the answers. I am sure we can all agree that students should be tested, though, with their glasses. However, I hope we can also agree that while certain practices may be legal, they are far from best practice. For example, testing after a 5-day break. Ms. Kuransky maintained that it was appropriate to administer a lengthy multi-period test immediately following a 5-day break on a 7-year-old. ABA services and goal setting. She reiterated her position that it was acceptable for someone who has never met a child to write ABA goals for them. When we asked repeatedly if this is considered best practice in her professional opinion, she avoided providing a direct answer, relented, and said yes. Number 3. Classroom placement for Jake. Ms. Kuransky defended Jake's placement in a first grade resource room, although he's in 2nd grade, arguing that it was legal. However, this placement raises significant concerns. Jake is reading chapter books, writing paragraphs, yet he was placed with students that are learning how to decode. It's difficult to see how this was considered the best fit for him, especially as we know this kind of mismatch will lead to frustration and ultimately behavioral issues. So if this is what trying your hardest looks like, well, I'm here to tell you, it's not enough. You need to do better. Dr. Panic, when you are telling the community that you are working hard and doing your best, I'm here to tell you and the board our experience. People have reached out to me after hearing about our experience to share theirs, and this is completely unsolicited. So although you are a member of the community, if you don't have a child being underserved, or in some cases not being served at all, then I am unsure what perspective you are speaking to. Please keep in mind, Jake is a success story, and I'm here to celebrate him and try to make this path smoother for anybody that follows us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
Good evening, everyone. I am Lee Eaton. I live at 6 Laurelwood Drive in Bernardsville. I would like to share with you an email sent to Mr. Kohlhofer and Ms. Kuransky on behalf of my husband, myself, and 12 other parents in my child's 4th grade class Tuesday at 8 a.m. We still have no response or acknowledgement to our detailed concerns regarding a major change to our classroom's inclusion support. Tomorrow will mark 1 full week since the change was made, and we have yet to hear any information other than from our very upset children. We remain very concerned with the actions taken by special services and the administration. Here's our email. We are a group of very concerned parents with students in the 4th grade classroom of Ms. Hall and Mr. Sakin. On Thursday of the past week, January 16th, our students returned home from school feeling upset and were reported that Mr. Sakin has a new schedule and will be gone from the classroom every morning going forward. This is a drastic shift for our classroom, as it has been operating on a co-teaching model, and we have received no communication on this change. We are requesting more information or a meeting to learn more about this sudden change. Some students in 4 Hall Sakin have been receiving support from Mr. Sakin for years prior in a resource setting and have been lucky enough to transition out of resource and into inclusion, still with Mr. Sakin. 4th grade is a pivotal year in Somerset Hills as students are preparing to move over to BMS. For these students, spending 4th grade as their first year out of resource, they are also reading to learn in all subjects. Their support from Mr. Sakin as the inclusion teacher assures these special education students are not only finding success in their new learning environment, but also will be ready for another huge change in September at BMS. It is important to understand all 20 students in 4 Hall Sakin, regardless of identified support need, are greatly affected by this unexpected and unexplained change. Changing the support structure of our class, even if legal, alters the stability that is the underpinning of the entire class. All students benefit from the structure in place since day one. Why would the district not hire a new person for a new support need? Why is our classroom being completely changed with no notification to parents? Why would the best practice not be the standard for all of our students? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton.
Hi, good evening. Michelle Gagliardi. I'm a resident at 92 Mine Mount Road and a concerned parent of a student in the grade 4 Hall Sakin classroom. Echoing what Lee just shared, I'm concerned and disappointed with the lack of communication from the district regarding the immediate classroom changes. This is at no fault of our incredible team of classroom teachers. Further, all of the students in 4 Hall Sakin and their individual needs deserve to be considered. The current level of inclusion support has been instrumental in fostering a classroom culture where all students can thrive, academically, socially, and emotionally. Reducing Mr. Sakin's time in the classroom not only compromises the progress made to date, but has also the potential to create significant challenges. A mid-year change prior to graduating to the middle school is a questionable and borderline irresponsible decision to meet a new need within the school. If there is a need for additional resources at Bedwell, we would expect new resources to be added, not taken from another area of need, especially taking from a classroom which is an exemplary model of a co-teaching success. Please let our class families know when we can expect answers to our concerns or when available to meet with us. Thank you for your time, and this is on behalf of the Gagliardi family, Perugias, Eatons, Shavers, Paladinos, Donahue's, Bananis, and Palippos. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gagliardi.
Good evening. Amy Shaver, 20 Southfield Drive, Bernardsville. Good evening. I would like to first note that we did send an email to Mr. Kohlhofer, and we have yet to receive a response. My daughter Tessa, along with 19 of her classmates, entered the 4th grade year at Bedwell in the fall in the inclusion classroom, led by Ms. Hall and Mr. Sakin. My child does not have an IEP, but I was beyond excited for her to have Ms. Hall. My son Bryce had Ms. Hall last year in the 23-24 school year, and she is a superior, excellent teacher, one of the best at Bedwell. And Mr. Sakin, who I had only heard the best things about from all the parents whose children have been in the resource room. From the beginning of the school year, it was evident that they were the dream team, running the classroom together and feeding off one another in the best ways. Back to school night and November parent-teacher conferences with both of them was fluid and flawless, and my daughter has flourished and had one of her best years at Bedwell in their shared classroom. Being a classroom mom, I have the opportunity to be in the classroom for parties and crafts, and the two of them are magic together. The dynamic is untouched, one that fosters learning, collaboration, engagement, creativity, fun, discipline, and in my mind, the perfect picture of what an inclusion classroom should be. Fast forward to last Thursday, January 16th, the children in 4 Hall Sakin came home from school telling their parents that Mr. Sakin was to be pulled out of the classroom for the beginning of the school year, or for the beginning of each school day for the rest of the year, to support another student in a different class and grade. Yet none of the parents had been notified. The kids have already spent the first 5 months with Mr. Hall and Miss Hall and Mr. Sakin co-teaching there every day in the classroom. Surely this could not be true, that they had pulled Mr. Sakin out and not told the parents. But it seems it is true. A change to a teacher mid-year is a big deal for any child, let alone some with IEPs that have depended on that dynamic and culture in the classroom. My daughter does not have an IEP and has never been in the resource room at Bedwell. She has spent years in the middle of the pack academically and somewhat lost amidst the sea of students. I can say this year she is excelling academically, specifically writing, and when she has trouble in math, is getting that extra help she needs, even though she does not have identified support. This has boosted her confidence and is preparing her for middle school. This is without a doubt as a result of the excellent co-teaching between Ms. Hall and Mr. Sakin. This attention to her gift for writing and ability to get extra help in math will no doubt be affected by this change as both teachers will be spread thin, trying to manage a class of 20, some with IEPs, during January through June, in which is the most crucial time in 4th grade as they prepare to take their state testing. This change, while it may be legal as it relates to IEP time requirements, is not the reputation the district should be striving for surrounding special services, especially an inclusion classroom where 2 teachers is justifyingly the norm, as well as moving teachers around without consideration for the actual teacher and their career development. Lack of communication and regard for an established teaching environment is something that has been ignored in this situation. Teachers should not be pushed and pulled around.
So sorry, I just have to interrupt. If there's anybody else that would like to take the podium.
Sorry. You're good. She can finish.
Hi, Kathy Ferrugia, Fox Hollow Trail, Bernardsville. I am also here to speak to you about the changes in 4 Hall Sakin. My son Nicholas is in that class. He does not have an IEP. I am here to discuss the changes that have taken place regarding the 4th grade inclusion class that was originally taught by Ms. Hall and Mr. Sakin, as my son Nicholas is a member of that classroom. This class has been taught as an inclusion and co-teaching classroom since day one. Though Ms. Hall is a veteran teacher and Mr. Sakin is on the newer side, This was a new experience for both of them, and it was evident that they worked hard before the year even began to create an environment where everyone's needs were met and each student and teacher's strengths were magnified. Conferences in November were held together. A clear plan was outlined for parents regarding which teacher was responsible for which lessons throughout the parts of the day. Comments were heard from both teachers about a student's progress and learning and specific strengths and weaknesses. It was evident that teaching was happening together and a great deal of emphasis was being put on the classroom team as a whole. To echo what Amy has said, I'm also a classroom parent and have had the opportunity to be in the classroom for parties and crafts, and the two of them together really are magic. The way it feels in that room, it's easy to see how the children are thriving. It's an environment that fosters learning, engagement, creativity, fun, discipline, and all that an inclusion classroom should be. This class functions as a team because the team of teachers has made it that way. To remove one of them for even a portion of the day makes no sense. The children are thriving, and you finally have a successful special services environment in this building. On a separate note, I'd like to know why parents were not notified of this change by administration, school or otherwise. Why did I have to hear about this major shift in classroom environment and dynamic from my 10-year-old? Was special services hoping the children would not report back at home? Were they hoping to sneak in the change without parents noticing? The children noticed, and the parents have noticed, and you've left parents with no answers for our children about why half of their beloved teacher team has suddenly headed to another classroom after 5 months of them being taught together. I strongly urge you to reconsider moving Mr. Sagan out of the inclusion classroom. He's an integral part of the classroom dynamic, and the students and parents will miss him greatly. I look forward to hearing an update from some or all of you, or possibly even building administrators. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maura McGrail, 36 Stevens Street, Bernardsville. During the last meeting, it was mentioned that special education is about ensuring that every child, regardless of ability, has the tools and support they need to be educated appropriately. It was further explained that decisions are made by a multidisciplinary team, including parents and teachers, and that collaboration makes for the best outcomes. I feel it's imperative that I share my experience publicly so that everyone can see how the district defines collaborative. After receiving reading support in second grade with a reading specialist, not via an IEP, our child was placed out in third grade for being, quote unquote, right on the cusp. In January of 2023, I submitted our initial letter and request for an evaluation, and we were denied. We spent the rest of that school year meeting with specialists and having private evaluations done. After seeing our zip code, one of those specialists said she truly hoped she wouldn't find anything because she knew what a challenge it would be for us to get services in our district. That definitely sounds like the reputation of a child study team that's collaborative. In July 2023, 7 months after our initial request for an evaluation, the child study team agreed. In November of 2023, 11 months after our initial request and thousands of dollars later, the district was finally collaborative, and after several painstaking meetings, we had an IEP in place. For those 2 years, my child had 0 specialized reading support. How is this ensuring that every child, regardless of ability, has the tools and support they need to be educated appropriately? How is this collaborative? Most parents would give up at the first no, and that seems to be what our district wants. As mentioned last meeting, IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. However, the recommendation we were given was an off-the-shelf recommendation for several hours in a resource room, when just months ago, this same team of individuals was telling me that my child didn't even need to be evaluated. How are we to trust their recommendations? When I questioned the child study team about other options, there was again no collaboration. The response I kept receiving was, "This is what we are recommending, and it is in accordance with state laws," which seems to be a recurring theme from every person that has been up here tonight. So I offered a solution that I knew they would say no to, but thankfully I have a child study advocate who is part of a child study team in another district, so I knew it could be done. She was appalled at the hoops we had to go through, the lack of detailed information in the evaluations, and how uncollaborative our child study team was. No one doubts that our child study team is working hard, but they need to work smarter.
We are fooling ourselves if we think it is like this in every district, that there are this many lawsuits for failing to provide services, for parents, even with a diagnosis, having to fight tooth and nail for their child's education, for the majority of parents having the same experience, for there to be this many serious behavioral issues in classrooms.
Ms. McGrail, my apologies, I have to interrupt. Is there anybody else who would like to make a statement? Nope. Okay, then you'll have another 3 minutes.
Okay. For there to be this many serious behavioral issues in classrooms, likely because we have failed these children. And now, every student in that classroom's education is being negatively impacted. We are failing our children and our teachers. In any business, the culture, attitude, and ways of working is set by leadership. Leadership sets the tone. In my experience with our district, the leadership of the child services team has set the tone for mediocrity instead of thinking outside of the box for the individual child. I truly look forward to collaborating in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else at this time? No. Okay, then can I get a motion to close public comments, please? Ms. Santoro, and a second. Ms. Cooper? Okay, thank you. And I will need then at this time a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, and a second? Okay, Ms. Gomez. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.